What began as an ordinary evening in Port Charles slowly unraveled into one of the most unsettling nights the town had faced in years. Charlotte and Danny hadn't planned anything dramatic. It was supposed to be simple, a quiet ride, a chance to clear their heads, to escape the pressure that seemed to follow them everywhere. The streets were calm, the air heavy with that strange stillness that often comes before something changes forever. Neither of them noticed the tension building beneath the surface. As they moved through town, conversations echoed in their minds, unfinished arguments, unspoken fears, emotions neither of them knew how to articulate. Danny kept his focus forward, trying to stay present, while Charlotte clung to the feeling of freedom the ride gave her. For a moment, everything felt almost normal. Then, everything shifted. A sudden distraction, a moment of hesitation, and in the blink of an eye, the calm shattered. The sound alone drew attention from blocks away. Doors opened. People ran toward the street, hearts pounding before they even knew why. Within minutes, the quiet road was filled with confusion, panic, and disbelief. When help arrived, time seemed to stretch unnaturally. Every second felt heavier than the last. News traveled fast in Port Charles. By the time word reached the hospital, the atmosphere changed instantly. Staff moved with urgency, faces grim, voices low. No one needed to say names out loud. Everyone felt the weight of who might be involved. Laura was among the first to sense that something was terribly wrong. A call interrupted her evening, and the tone alone told her this wasn't routine. She barely remembers the drive, only the pounding of her heart and the dread tightening in her chest with every mile. Sonny received the news differently, but the impact was just as devastating. He froze where he stood, the world around him fading as the words sank in. He had lived through more chaos than most, but this felt different. This wasn't business, this wasn't rivalry, this was personal. When Laura arrived at the hospital, she was met with faces that couldn't hide the truth. She didn't cry at first. Shock wrapped around her like armor, keeping reality at a distance. She demanded answers, clinging to logic, to facts, to anything that would ground her. Sonny arrived soon after. The moment their eyes met, no words were needed. Whatever had happened had already changed everything. Inside, Charlotte and Danny were fighting battles no one could see. Machines hummed softly, a stark contrast to the emotional storm brewing outside their doors. Loved ones waited, pacing, praying, bargaining with fate in the quiet corners of the hospital. Laura finally broke down when she saw Charlotte. Seeing someone so young lying still, surrounded by wires and monitors, was more than she could bear. Guilt washed over her in waves, questions of what she could have done differently, what signs she might have missed. Sonny stood nearby, torn between anger and helplessness. He blamed the world, the circumstances, even himself. He wanted someone to hold responsible, but there was no clear target, only consequences. As hours passed, the tension only grew. Doctors spoke carefully, choosing their words with precision. Nothing was certain. Everything depended on time, and time in moments like these felt cruel. Outside the hospital, Port Charles held its breath. Rumors spread, each one more alarming than the last. Friends gathered, families whispered, and the community that so often thrived on drama now faced something painfully real. Meanwhile, Alexis arrived, her legal instincts immediately colliding with her personal concern. She began asking questions, not to assign blame, but to understand what had gone wrong. Patterns, circumstances, the smallest details suddenly mattered. Dante, torn between duty and family, struggled to remain composed. He knew procedures, he knew protocols, but none of that prepared him for standing on the other side, waiting, powerless. As night turned into early morning, a shift occurred. One doctor emerged with news, not final, not complete, but enough to change the emotional landscape. There was progress, fragile, uncertain, but real. Laura collapsed into a chair, overwhelmed, not with relief, but with exhaustion. Sonny exhaled for what felt like the first time since hearing the news. But relief did not mean resolution. The emotional aftermath began almost immediately. Questions surfaced, regrets hardened, relationships strained under the weight of fear and blame. Charlotte and Danny's lives were no longer moving forward in the way anyone expected, and neither were the lives of those who loved them. When Charlotte finally stirred, even slightly, it sent ripples through the room, a hand movement, a breath, small signs that felt monumental. Danny's situation remained uncertain, casting a long shadow over every hopeful moment. Laura found herself praying, not just for recovery, but for forgiveness. Sonny wrestled with the realization that control, something he valued above all else, meant nothing in moments like these. By morning, Port Charles was no longer the same. What happened on that road didn't end with flashing lights or hospital doors closing. It lingered in conversations, in sleepless nights, in the way people looked at their children just a little longer before letting them go. And somewhere between fear and hope, one truth became impossible to ignore. This was not just an accident, it was a turning point, and the consequences would unfold for weeks, perhaps forever, changing alliances, testing loyalties, and forcing everyone involved to confront how fragile everything truly is. Because in Port Charles, some nights don't just end, they echo.